Just jamming along to the music. Welcome, happy new year. We can still say that, right? Anyway, so many of us want to forget the first 10 days. So it's Monday night, January 11th for me, live from my basement on the unceded territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka, acknowledging as well the Atikamekw, the Huron-Wendat, and the Anishinaabe, and how good it actually feels to acknowledge the land and how important it is for us to continue to make these connections to our past. So it may not be Monday for you, but it's Monday for me, and I'm in a very good mood and so happy to be ending this day right now with Lisa's Nightcap. Before the pandemic, we would spend hours behind the scenes, working out the details, planning, logistics, contracts, but eventually we get to the art. And as art is obviously a process, we still get an end result and we get to experience it with an audience. So these last 9 months without an audience makes you really appreciate those moments like right now during the day or night when we actually get to focus on doing what we love. Talk about our hopes and dreams, share theater stories with some wonderful people, and of course, knowing that we're doing it for you. So even though this is an incredibly large virtual world, we're still finding connections, we're finding joy together, we're keeping that theater spark alive, and remembering that it's still a small world, and it means so, so much that you are here watching. So thank you for being here. Tonight, we're going to take a look at a Segal Center program that is fairly new officially, but I would argue has in some ways been happening naturally for years. That is our Jewish Arts Mentorship program, otherwise known as J.A.M. We'll hear from the director and the artistic mentor of the program, and then we'll get to meet and get to know this year's 2020 J.A.M. cohort, handpicked for their artistry and fearlessness when it comes to being open to exploring that Jewish piece of them, which we, of course, can imagine how different it is for everyone, and for their drive to just explore and to becoming great artists. So we're just so happy to be a part of their journey. So let's get started and bring on Sivan Slapback, who's doing double duty tonight, backstage as the producer of this Nightcap. Sivan, hi, is also the Jewish Programs Manager and the Director of the J.A.M. program. So we're here spending an hour talking about J.A.M, Sivan. People are like, it's not a very public thing. You can't really buy tickets to it. So tell us in your words, what is the Jewish Arts Mentorship Program?
Okay, I'll tell you, and stop me if I go on and on. Program I feel pretty excited about, so I can, get a little carried away. But the Jewish Arts Mentorship Program is, like you said, a program that formalizes things that the Segal has been doing unofficially for a long time, which is to really support emerging artists in the community and offer Segal resources to them. So there's a frame around that now. We started the program not even 3 years ago. We're going into our third year now. It is a program where we do handpick 3 or 4 emerging artists who have, a bit of a track record and who have been working but are still in earlier stages of their career, and are developing work that touches on Jewish themes somehow. So you don't have to be Jewish to be in J.A.M, but you do have to be, engaging with Jewish themes, and that is very, very broadly defined. I'll just tell you the basic structure of the program, which is it's not intensive as far as meetings go. It's really there's a lot of space for people to work on something, and you'll hear from Kate in a second, who's the artistic mentor, to meet with her monthly and set goals and talk about what the project is and what stage they're hoping to be at by June, and to just meet with her, on a regular basis. And then we also meet monthly as a group to talk about the work, but to also just talk about, questions that have to do with the intersection of Jewish identity and artistic identity and where our work falls on that. And and to be a support to one another for a few months. So that's the basic thing. There are a lot of perks to J.A.M too, show tickets and rehearsal space that are, fallen away a bit right now. But I feel that the main thing is really people getting a chance to nurture their own work and to be in conversation with one another about it. That's my elevator.
So, Sivan, you're the Jewish programs manager. You do a lot at the Siegel Center with your work with the Debora Friedmann Yiddish Theater, with help with grant writing, with having your tentacles everywhere in the Jewish community. But whenever J.A.M comes up, you're like, eyes light up. You have this like, I can just tell that it means so much to you, that you love it so much. Like, what is it about this program that I just sense it's just so important to you?
Yeah, you know, like I said, it's a small program, but I think that is what I find very appealing. It's very intimate. You know, we are a small group, and it's a really, first of all, we talk about things that are important to me, like on a very, you know, deep level of how do you make, like, how do you touch themes that have been touched like a million times before? How do you make something new? How do you stay true to yourself as an artist? Like, that all speaks to me. So I'm really like very excited to have conversations about that. And I also feel like you know, through this program, I get a chance to talk to people who come with very, very diverse programs and diverse backgrounds, and, you know, have very different needs out of the program. And it's really interesting to me and very moving to me what people are working on and the kinds of things that come up in our meetings. And I also just like the idea of like supporting new work. You know, I don't know, it just, you know, the whole thing works for me.
Yeah, it's awesome.
As a person, it just really.
Right. Well, we're so lucky that you take such good care of everyone and always strive to make the program meaningful and exciting for the cohort. So thank you for everything that you do. Let's bring on Caitlin Murphy, Artistic Associate of the Siegel Center and also the Artistic Mentor for the J.A.M, for the Jammers. Hi, Caitlin. So thanks for being here, you busy lady. Siegel audiences will have just remembered you from all those great meta conversations that you did. So, Caitlin, let's just call a spade. You're not Jewish.
I'm not Jewish, but I'm Jewish adjacent. I've been told I'm Jewish adjacent. I'm very close to the Jews, so I'm Jewish adjacent.
You're Jewish adjacent.
But I'm not Jewish, no, but I'm Jewish adjacent.
Well, I'd love to hear, okay, well, first, let's just, you're here with us. Let's ask, you know, what is your role? First of all, what does an artistic mentor do?
I feel like my role is really to find out where people are at with what they're doing. So a lot of it's just basically finding out what someone else is wanting. It's not so much kind of imposing anything particular in terms of what I would like to be doing. It's really finding out what they want, where they're at. And then it just becomes about like asking a lot of really annoying questions. Like, I feel like my job is just to keep like poking and asking questions, and people go, I don't know. It's like, okay, I'll think about that and get back to me. It's a lot of conversations, a lot of discussion. It's a lot of thinking about what people are saying they want to do and trying to think of ways that they can get there. So it's exciting because you feel like you're kind of working with what's there and trying to help people move towards what they want to move towards. So it's great for somebody who likes asking lots of questions like I do.
Right. And by the way, when I said you're not Jewish, that's obviously, I think, one of the great positive things to having you work on this, because you come at it from a very practical, artistic, you know, does this make sense as a work of art for anybody to consume, while there's deeper, maybe Jewish work for the team, you know, underneath it. So it's a great thing. But being a part of a Jewish arts mentorship program, do you have any observations or anything that's I don't know, that like if you had to tell someone, hey, I'm part of a Jewish arts mentorship program, they're like, really? That's interesting. What would you say to that?
I mean, I think there's themes that come up all the time. And the one that seems the strongest is the conflictual relationship to the Jewish identity. Like, that just seems like everybody starts there. It's just like, I'm not really sure how I feel about being Jewish. It's like, this feels like such a kind of starting point for so many people. And in some iteration of that, it seems to come up all the time about people kind of just working through that, thinking about it or investigating it, or just it just feels like it's constantly there as a question mark, and that's exciting to me.
Yeah.
So things aren't settled. They're not. It feels like there's a restlessness. There's a kind of inquisitiveness about it, which is interesting to me, because when things feel kind of like settled, they're not exciting. They're resolved and they're boring. So like I like that there's this constant negotiation and constant battle against this thing, because it just feels like there's so much energy and dynamism in that, as opposed to just a really kind of like quiet resolve around something. It feels very charged to me.
Do you know how many books have been written on this subject?
That makes sense. That makes sense.
It does. It makes complete sense. And the fact that you can articulate it like that, because we are in this kind of constant drive to do better, to learn more, to become something, to question, it's very, very cool. So we're going to get to meet our mentees. I know you can't stick around, Caitlin, but seeing as we have four participants this year in the program, and one of them couldn't make it tonight. And that is Brandon Adam. So Brandon is a playwright and novelist from Montreal. And I'm looking at his bio, very interesting stuff. He recently completed his first novel. He'll soon be working on his second. He holds a BA in acting from Pace University, and he's currently completing a master's in creative writing at the University of Cambridge. Like, what?
We spoke today, and I'm just like, oh my God. He's like, I'll get you that first draft of the full play by tomorrow. I'm like, oh my God. Super ambitious guy. Really keen, really excited, and was super excited that I directed Doll's House Part 2 because he loves Lucas Nate. So we were just chatting up a storm about plays and scripts and writing, and having a great conversation. And I'm so looking forward to reading his writing and looking at his work together, because he just seems completely like charged up, excited person who's got a lot of ambition, a lot of interest in writing, and we have a lot of kind of favorite playwrights in common. So I'm super excited to get to look at his work and start digging into it.
So his project is going to be a play?
Yeah, he's writing a play about a Jewish young man who announces that he's converting to his family, converting to Christianity. So
wow,
those battles, those inner battles and those conflicts, and bringing that to the fore. So I'm very excited to read what he does with that.
That's amazing. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us. Sivan left us to prepare for us to meet our team. Oh, you're here. Okay. So Caitlin, thanks for coming. And Sivan, let's bring out Marissa and Hershel and Debbie.
Have a great chat, guys.
Thank you. Hello. So nice to have you all here.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Hello.
So, virtual world, take it in. This is the 2021 J.A.M cohort. Starting off the year pandemic style online. But you know how happy we were? Like, we didn't have to cancel J.A.M. Like, it could work like this. So this is awesome. And in a way, maybe people are even get to know you even more. Okay. So let's start with Marissa. And hi.
Hi.
Your bios are insane, by the way, all of you. It's crazy. Marissa, you're actually American.
I am. Yeah. Thanks for whispering that.
Thanks for whispering. Our hearts go out to you right now. And you really have an incredible career, but so far, and you're in this program, and we're going to hear more from you. But I feel like the best way just to get like the 101 on you is to just pop up a picture, because you sent in so many, and just tell us what that is.
Okay.
Okay, Sivan, here we go. Get ready. There we go. What's this?
Okay. I co-founded a street clowning group called Bedford Circus of Fools in New York City in 2006. And this is one of the photos taken on Bedford Avenue. I did a lot of crazy, weird public performance art in my time in New York City, and that was one of them.
Okay, next.
I studied I studied at NYU for my master's in performance studies with a focus in performance with animals, which is something that I had been focusing on. And I did this performance called Goat Walk with a festival called Art in Odd Places. And that was in 2011.
So that's a goat, not a dog. Everybody, that's a goat.
Yeah.
Don't see too many of those on TikTok. Okay, we have one more.
Since COVID, I've been doing a lot of virtual performance. Mostly, I would say some pre-recorded, but mostly trying to stay with live streamed. So these are just sort of like different screen grabs of the shows that I've been doing. I work with a lot. I do my own blood work and gore effects. And this is something that, yeah, I've just been kind of like working and trying to bring what I do on stage to the screen, to this virtual screen, and experimenting with that during this past year.
Amazing. Well, I don't think we need to say anymore. I think that it just tells us so much. But what we haven't learned is, why are you in Montreal? Like what brought you to Montreal? And with all of your training so far and different projects, what made you apply to the J.A.M program?
I came to Montreal in 2016 after the Trump election. I made the decision after I had my daughter in the hospital when she was born. I decided that it was probably a good idea to go to a place where I felt like I was going to be more comfortable raising a family.
Wow.
So I moved here. I was lucky enough to be able to come here. And yeah, it took me a little bit to, get my feet wet, so to speak here. But I guess like what I'm doing in the J.A.M program is that I've been thinking a lot about expanding maybe like my writing. I write a lot of documentary theater stuff and like verbatim theater. And I wanted to kind of push into that a little bit more and see where I could go. And my Jewish identity is something that I have maybe not pushed into, and I think it would be interesting to do so.
Well, it's so wonderful to meet you and to have you here, and that's such a brave story. It's a very Jewish story, actually, what you just described, leaving a place so your family could have a better life. I mean, it's classic Jewish story. So not Brandon, Hershel, over to you. We'll come back to you, Marissa. So Hershel, you are an actor and writer born and raised in Toronto. Is that where we're finding you tonight?
We are in Toronto. Yeah.
Okay. And you have some movie credits, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, and tons of movie credits here. Oh my God. But I'm really interested in the fact that you're developing a play called the Ahava Later?
Yeah, Ahava Later.
Ahava Later.
Yeah.
Great. And with the Winnipeg Jewish Theater. And I love Ari Weinberg. We find all sorts of opportunities to connect. Ari's the artistic director of the Winnipeg Jewish Theater. And so tell me about, I think we have some photos about Ahava Later. So I'd love to hear more about that as a get to know you, Hershel.
Yeah, totally. So that was actually a photo from like almost 4 years ago now. I did it in my 4th year of theater school as I was graduating. It started as like a 20-minute play that we did kind of in my final year. And since then I've done like an independent workshop on my own. And then over COVID, I started working with Ari on kind of developing that. And now that's kind of still happening. He's giving me some dramaturgy on that. We're doing some sessions with that. But yeah, that was the initial inception, I guess, when I was starting 4th year. Yeah, that was Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the play is about, it's set in Toronto in the 1960s, about this Jewish family, kind of a coming of age story surrounding their queer son's relationship, and their daughter who wants to go to university, and this kind of like coming of age story of this immigrant Jewish family just like a decade and a half after World War II in Toronto.
Wow. And how did you find your way into the J.A.M program?
Yeah, so the J.A.M program specifically, my friend Rachel Matumbo, who's a Montreal born Montreal writer, actor, and I'm friends with her, and she kind of told me about the program, and I kind of had spent summers growing up in Montreal with family, and I thought I'd give it a go, and now I am here in the program. So that's kind of my way into it. A friend told me, and I learned about it, and I'm super excited to be a part of it.
Is last name Blatt, Montrealers with the last name Blatt?
No, it is not. It's Bars. My uncle and aunt, they live in like downtown / Westmount. It's my mom's maiden name. Yeah, Bars, Barrs.
Just giving our peeps here a chance to play Jewish geography.
Montreal as well. Yeah, I think my aunt is watching, so if she's watching, hi, Auntie Carol. She's
awesome. Auntie Carol, thank you for watching. We're so happy to have Hershel as part of the program. It says here, which I love, Hershel, that you're looking at investigating queer Jewish identity. Is that something that you want to tell me about that part of?
I'm a young queer Jewish artist, and a lot of my work, I'm kind of looking at that intersection and how kind of that plays out, and especially with the Hava later. The main character Leon is really looking at that, through his lens, just being this young teenage boy and working through his identity at a time when it wasn't necessarily out in the open, and we didn't have the social kind of world that we have now as far as like identity and acceptance. So just kind of working in general with like, what does it mean to be Jewish and queer, and what can that look like? What does that look like? And then the play that I'm working with in the J.A.M program is kind of an extension of that, investigating queer youth over a period from the 1960s into the future, and that's kind of an extension of a Hava later. So I'm super interested in exploring those kind of topics and seeing where they go and what they mean to people.
So are we. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to turn to Debbie. Debbie works at the Siegel Center too, but she's like, I don't know what the female version is of Jack of all trades. I don't know what it is. We should find one so we can make that sound better. But there's really nothing that Debbie doesn't do. And we had this conversation while we were even prepping this. How are we going to introduce you, Debbie? So we decided that we'd maybe pick one thing of you performing, one thing of you. There we go. Okay. There's your performing. What's this one about?
So actually, I did not perform in this show. There's not very many pictures of me performing, so they are hard to find, because that's not, as much as I'm a jack of all trades, that's not the trade I do too often. But that was actually a picture of Rent when I did it with the Arts Undergraduate Theater Society at McGill. So that's us actually, we are on stage. So we are on stage warming up before a show. It was a very intense show actually, dance-wise. So we had like a very intense warm-up. It's one of my favorite pictures. I always have very fond memories of that cast and of putting them through heck to be able to manage it. Girl boss, I love that, Mel. I will take that as a jack of all trades.
Yes, much better, much better. But in addition to being also an educator, you're a director, you're a choreographer, you're a producer, starting your own theater company. Really, like, it's, overachiever right there. So we have a few more photos. So we said, okay, we're gonna see there were some often things of you on stage, which is why I said that. See, isn't that an amazing one?
There I am performing. That's me in a dance show. Actually, it was when I was a student at McGill. Actually, this was a dance show I did at the company there. It was super fun. That's at the same company, different show though. I danced with them for a few years. I've danced in a few different companies. That's definitely more, I think I have more experience performing as a dancer actually than as an actor, but especially recently, since I started directing, that's kind of like become my obsession, I'd say. So a little bit less on on the stage, a little bit more behind the scenes, which is fun. Yeah.
And you started a theater company, which is, I think, one of again, very brave thing to do. And I know you had great success with your first production, Bonnie and Clyde. There it is.
Yeah, we did. We were very blessed with that show. It was really an incredible experience. It was our first show, and it was at the main line, which was a lot of fun. Very challenging to do a musical at the main line, but we pulled it off. I had such an incredible team working with me on that show. My partner, Ali Broomer, who started the company with me, she's kind of like, I call her the brains behind the situation a lot of the time. She's really the organized one that like makes it happen, but I'm the creative side and she's the business side, and together we pulled it off, and it was a really great show. Yeah.
And you are also part of the Black Theater Workshop Mentorship Program, and I've you have an incredible thirst to continue learning, to continue growing. So there you are. There's the last year's artistic mentorship ampers. So now coming over to J.A.M, what's going to be different about this for you, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky to be in AMP with Black Theater Workshop. That was such a great learning experience for me. And that was fantastic because I got to work in that program as a director. So I got to have the incredible Jessica Carmichael help me with my mentorship as far as directing. And I had such great opportunities there. But I've been wanting to reconnect with my writer side for a long time. It was an art that I did a lot when I was younger. And then you know how life is, your focus changes.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had a chance to really write very much, and I took a course at NTS where I'd started this kind of play about, loosely based on my own family, about a family kind of dealing with mental health issues and migration and kind of intergenerational trauma to a certain extent. So I was really interested in finding a new way to explore that, and COVID, in a way, kind of forced, I think, a lot of people to start focusing on their writing in theater who had an interest in that. So I took it as an opportunity to kind of learn and grow and develop my artistry in a new way. So I'm really hoping that J.A.M will be a space for me to develop a bit more as a writer and to develop a bit more that side of my creative potential, hopefully.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to, since we're all here together and this is talking about the Jewish Arts Mentorship Program, I'm going to throw some questions at you. They might not be that easy, but again, remember, there's no wrong answer here. Okay. But I'm first, I guess, I'm curious to know if there's any nerves going into a program that's going to kind of not force, but encourage you to look at things, or how your Jewish identity plays a role in the art that you create. And you may each come from different levels of experience in that. But Marissa, maybe I'll come back to you because you said it's something that you don't explore very often. What do you think that's going to be like for you, or do you have any expectations? Or
I don't have any expectations necessarily, but I feel like there are these forces in the world that we can't control, and theater is this place where we can release those forces, and it can alter life itself. And so my life informs my work, and my work informs my life with great force. And so whatever I'm going to put into it, it's going to change me. I know for sure. And I think I'm not afraid of change. I look forward to it. I really, I'm looking forward to whatever sort of like the transitional phase, but also like who's going to be on the other side of this experience.
That's beautiful. Well, one of the things I say a lot to, like, as a mentor sometimes, is to be open to feedback, to criticism, but at the same time, that also means being open to yourself. And that's a whole other way of being open, right? And it's sometimes harder to be open to yourself than it is to receive that feedback. Don't we know that?
Yeah.
So Hershel, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've been exploring for a while. I think how being Jewish affects my work, especially because I've identified as an actor for longer than I have as a writer. I think just over the past kind of few years, as I've really started to dig into my writing and developing plays and some film projects. And I think just, yeah, like growing up, I've grown up in Toronto. I'm from like the Bathurst and Lawrence area in North York. And yeah, and I'm from like a very kind of mixed Jewish family when it comes to like some of my family has been here for a lot longer than others. Some are more recent immigrants. And I think it's this kind of like identity that really influences the way I write and the kind of things I write about. So yeah, I think, and I'm interested in kind of digging into that more than just the surface and really realizing to me kind of what that means and how it manifests itself. And yeah, it's something I'm exploring in the Winnipeg program, but I think here, I think there are some nerves just because I'm not a Montreal artist, and there's a bit of like, I'm kind of coming into this pool that I'm not as familiar with. But I think that's also exciting, especially like thinking about Montreal and its history with Jewish theater and Yiddish theater and the kind of like deep history that's there even more so than Toronto. So just kind of being, working with this theater that kind of has that it's super cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to you in a sec because you sparked a very interesting idea. But Debbie, what are you feeling when it comes to talking about that Jewish piece of you?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's been interesting for me because it's not something I've explored a lot in the art I've done. But as you mentioned, I do also work at the Siegel Center in the communications department. And I found that the experience of just working in a theater that, as much as it's not a Jewish space, like necessarily, there is a lot of Jewish kind of culture, and a lot of that has started to influence me a lot more. And I've been a lot more immersed in it since I started working at the Siegel Center than I have been really since, honestly, in a very, very long time. I grew up in Vancouver, actually, not in Montreal. So I feel you on even though I've been here for a while, Hershel, I think all of us feel you on the like nerves of being an artist from outside of Montreal to a certain extent. Yeah, so I do find that I've kind of found this new connection through the Siegel Center, and I'm really excited to see where that leads. I'm not going to say I'm not a bit nervous, especially because my piece, I've learned as I've written it, is actually so much more based in Judaism and in intergenerational trauma than I thought it was. It's one of those pieces that started kind of being like a fun family quirky thing that like was also Jewish, and then as I've written it over the past few months especially, I've kind of started to realize how big of a piece it is. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a really great resource for me to be able to explore that piece, not only of the show, but of myself as an artist, which is a really great and unique opportunity. So I'm like very grateful and excited to be exploring that also with this cohort in particular, because I also resonate a lot with what Ashley said as far as being Jewish and still kind of figuring out where that fits into my identity. So I'm really looking forward to it. A bit scared, but mostly excited.
It's identity is such a interesting phenomenon, and I wonder, Hershel, you were making me think, and listening to Debbie as well, and Marissa, and just how different you all are. Have you ever felt like the other, if you know what I mean? Like, because you have that Jewish piece of you in the theater world or in your artistic practice, that because of that piece of you, maybe others don't get it, and when you're working on something that's more Jewish, it's easier? Or has that never happened to you? Am I just
No, I've definitely
projecting?
felt that for sure. No, not at all. Like, I've grown up in Toronto in a very like mixed area. I grew up in North York and then went to high school at a Tobler School of the Arts, where people were from all kind of walks of life. But then in university, I went to theater school at the UTM Sheridan program, where you had people from all different parts of Ontario. So I was the first Jewish person at 18 that a bunch of my class had met. You know what I mean? So it's like, just depends on where you are, because a lot of the time in the big cities, if you're from a big center, you may be this Jewish person out of a bunch of different kinds of people. But when you get to smaller places in different provinces in Canada, I really feel like you are like this minority, and it's just different. Yeah. And I think it just depends on where you are and where you're living. But yeah, I've definitely felt like the odd one out in different ways, as being a Jewish artist and Jewish person and just kind of explaining things to people. But I think it just depends on where you are, and it's easier or harder depending, I would say. Yeah.
Anyone else want to answer that? No, they're thinking about it. So when it comes to Jewish culture and arts, and I see the future here, the present and the future, and what we're really doing is encouraging perspectives, encouraging the now. And we also obviously always look to the past. Debbie, you're exploring this in your own family right now. What would you like? How do you envision in Jewish culture in the future, or what are things that you'd love to see change, or that get to you now and you can't wait to get in there and make a difference? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I can speak, I guess, just like my instinctive thought in mind right away. I would love to see like the Jewish community's relationship change somewhat with other communities and start to like reach out more to other communities. I think that that's one thing that the Jewish community has done, in part out of, in some cases, like purely necessity. Really, that's where it comes from, I think, on some level. But there is this kind of insular nature that kind of comes with the Jewish community, and the Jewish community in Montreal, especially, just coming from Vancouver and being a Jew from somewhere else, I felt that already. So I would love to see like the future of Judaism kind of being more open and being more connected with other communities, and realizing like we've shared a lot of struggles with a lot of other people, you know what I mean? And starting to realize the ways in which that can connect us and hopefully help us build not just better art, but a better like space for us to all kind of inhabit together. I think that that's what I'd love to see, is like a shift away from this insular nature towards sharing it, because that is such an important thing, kindness in the Jewish community. So I'd love to see how that can kind of be expanded and sent out to others as well as our own communities.
Yeah, that's always need work on that one for sure. What about you, Marissa?
I don't know. It's a good question. I really, I still kind of feel new here in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Where I come from in New York City, I spent 15 years there. And before that, I grew up on an animal farm in rural Pennsylvania. And I was one of the only Jewish kids in my high school. It was a interesting time, I guess, to grow up and to feel like, going back to your other question, like an other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe that otherness is something that is can be harmful, but it can also be helpful to I don't know, when you're finding your identity. I think both of those questions could be answered like together in a way. It's making me think a lot. I think I would like these questions written in an email to me, so I would have like a couple of hours to think about them and respond.
Or I wonder, like, if in 6 months from now, if we ask it again, you know. But I totally see what you mean when it comes to
the research. Like understanding what the landscape is here in Montreal, I think will really help me understand more to answer that question. Yeah.
And New York must have been a big change, though, too.
Yeah, it is a big change, but I'm happy for the change for sure.
Awesome. It's amazing having. I feel like the three of you are all leaders, even though you're in a program to be mentored and so that we can support you in your work as best as we can. I'll share with you that, I was a full-time performer, and it's really, with no experience in the administrative end of the theater world. And it was really because I got to be the assistant to Bryna Wasserman, who was the former artistic and executive director, and literally just follow her around all day, every day, that got me into this business. And it was a mentorship in a way, and this is the more you experience and the more you get and the more you take, you just never know where things will lead you. So I'm so happy that the Seagull can play a role in your journeys, and I hope it's going to work out very well for you all. And I'd love to get to know more, and I can't wait to follow along with you. So thank you so much. Speaking of following along the journeys, we do have some alumni here with us, and we just wanted to bring them in, hear from them. Maybe it'll be inspiring for you to hear, how their experiences were on the program, and also just check in and see what they're doing now. So we have Maggie and Michelle and Roger and Aaron, right? Do we have Roger? I know he was away before. Yes, awesome. So this is a mix of year 1 and year 2. Year 2 having turned virtual for the second half. But God, thank you for being here, all 4 of you. It's really great to see you. And because you're here with the current jammers, perhaps you can tell us, what you're up to, but more share something about the program that you hold close to you, and that or if there's anything you want to pass on, let's hear it. Michelle, how about you start?
Sure. I just am thinking about my time with J.A.M, and along with Maggie, I was the first year with J.A.M. So J.A.M was still trying to figure out what J.A.M was, and Jewish identity crisis, like the best of us. Oh yeah, that's a cute picture. So we were trying to figure out what J.A.M was, and the best thing that was encouraged is that I was allowed to ask, kind of, for what I needed. At the time, it was rehearsal space. But whether it's more time with your mentor or more time with someone else, a specific person that you want to speak to, that you want Sivan or Caitlin or Lisa to make a connection, the program is still so young and so hungry to give the mentees what they need that we could ask. And I would encourage you guys to do the same, especially because you're working digitally and the resources that would be afforded to you are a little bit different this year. But I know that the Seagull Center is looking out, and just ask.
Thanks, Michelle. And what are you up to? How are you?
Hi. Yeah, I'm just trying to take care of myself and make this year make sense. The cool thing that I wanted to talk about, though, is that my project, Games I Don't Want to Play, got a micro grant from the Museum of Jewish Montreal. So that's a project that I developed during J.A.M with my collaborator, Joseph Glazer. And we were really amped. We had a team of performers that we were going to be working with for a week in March of last year. Just around the same time that everything shut down. So we weren't able to do that, but we kind of rejigged it and worked with some stuff. And we ended up doing a digital showcase and making kind of like a music video to a modified version of DJ Casper's Cha Cha Slide. So it was very silly, and I think it was important to connect with the silly during this time. Make everyone take a deep breath so we can focus on hard work and hard days ahead. But yeah, so that was a big project for me. When did that actually happen? What is time? In October. Yeah.
Well, congrats. I love that it started and it keeps going. So that's really nice to hear.
Thank you.
And Maggie, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. Yeah. Do you want me to answer your first question about about my experience with J.A.M? And
yeah, absolutely. Whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was the first year of J.A.M, but I think the biggest thing about it was that it gave a structure and a platform and like a support to to a show process. So I think for me as an artist, I'm always looking to connect with my cultural identity or something personal, or a cultural story. And I think having the Siegel Center as like a major organization that can support young work or new ideas that's like in that cultural milieu is like really a lucky thing. So I was just happy to be able to tell Jewish stories or investigate Jewish topics, and to have a space and a time that's dedicated to sharing that work and having audience there to share it with. So yeah, during the J.A.M, I was working also at a distance with my dear friend Caradwin, who lives in London, UK. So we had been trying to work on this show for a few years, which is a puppet-based play inspired by a retelling of the Lilith and Samael story, with lots of other things that happen. It's really about two sisters who go on a magical journey into the underworld and the overworld, and it's a mix of myth and Yiddish folktale and klezmer music and puppets. And so we did actually go ahead and I went to London and we built prototype puppets of the show, and we did a scratch performance, which is what they say there. And then later, the picture that you're seeing is another piece that came off of wanting to explore Jewish identity. And this is a puppet show based on the life and poetry of Rachel Korn, who was a famous female Montreal-based Yiddish poet. And I got a little grant to work on that from the Yiddish Culture Foundation. So I actually worked on the Rachel Korn piece as part of my school program. So I'm at UCAM right now, studying in the contemporary puppetry performance program. And I started work on the Rachel Korn piece as part of the school puppetry piece. And it was very interesting for me to bring like a Jewish, Yiddish story into a university setting that is so francophone. So that's been a really a great project, and I hope to be redesigning and reworking on that show as part of like an online puppetry festival based in New York. I just applied for that festival, so we'll see if that happens. It's like it's called the Object Movement Theater Festival.
That's wonderful, and it's so inspiring to see that you're still doing, that you're still pushing, and you're still creating, because we know it's not easy. In like, you just want to lie on the couch most of the day. So it's just, finding that motivation or just finding the drive to push as an artist in this period is just, my hat's off to you. So wow. Okay, we have Roger and Aaron. Roger, hi. I have had the privilege of hearing many times your gratitude for this program, and it's so nice that you enjoyed your time here. But share, maybe you can tell us why. Like,
yeah, I mean, it was. I would just second everything that Michelle and Maggie said, and it's. It was a really amazing experience, and allowed me to ask questions and to have that, not only to have access to resources, but then when the COVID thing happened, it was a real light during a dark time, I think, for all of us. And one thing, like the aside from what was mentioned earlier about kind of the access to people and rehearsal spaces, which unfortunately this year's cohort hopefully we'll get access to, but maybe not. I'm not sure. But I had a lot of success with granting agencies. So use the opportunity. Like apply for grants. I got a research creation grant for my project. I got a digital originals grant for my project. So it's a real opportunity to get your, to be affiliated with an organization like the Siegel. It's a really great opportunity to try to, to get your foot in the door, because, it's a great organization and it's recognized. So, yeah. And for me, my project was about my grandmother, and I didn't actually really grow up religious at all, and this was kind of more about me talking to my grandmother about her experience. She was Jewish and grew up in Germany during the 1930s and had to leave. But so it was amazing to have access to kind of cultural dramaturgy to kind of, talk through any questions I had. And it was really like an amazing experience. I'm super grateful for it.
Thank you, Roger. That's so nice. And actually, we know that having the rehearsal space and access to spaces is something that so many artists need.
Yeah.
And the Siegel during the pandemic is offering all of our annex spaces for free, so that artists have a place where they can actually go to work, because artists work, and
Yes.
it's not always easy to work from their home, or they have to collaborate with somebody, but they're allowed to do it under our safe conditions and working conditions. And so please check out, we do have its free space, free artist space is the name. And of course, the J.A.M cohort will get access to that, but we're also offering it to anybody who considers themselves an artist, whatever
That's
kind
incredible.
of art they do. And we really learned that it makes a difference, actually, in part because of this program. So thanks for that, Roger.
Yeah.
So Erin, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
It's awesome to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having this and hosting this.
What words of wisdom can you impart to Marissa, Hershel, and Debbie?
I think mostly what I found the best aspect of J.A.M for me was the ability to kind of take risks and push your boundaries, and it's a safe, supportive space to do that. And you have amazing feedback from Sivan and Caitlin, and their guidance is so valuable.
That's beautiful. Sivan, come join us as for our wrap up. There you are. I think,
Hey, everyone.
So,
yeah.
Do you want to say anything?
Well, I just wanted to say, I don't know if I said it at the beginning. First of all, it's so nice to see everyone. But when just talking about the kind of like light-handed support that we try to give people through J.A.M, that doesn't end when the program ends. Like, I'm really, really happy to know where people go afterwards. Like, the whole point really is just like we have these artists on our radar and we can follow you. And because, people are not going to finish a complete production during J.A.M. It's only a few months, but they will arrive at a certain stage. Like, it's just sort of getting something on the rails. And then it's really exciting to see what happens next. So anyway, I just want to say, like, you're in now.
So Sivan, I know we're just at the beginning. We're getting to know Debbie and Hershel and Marissa and their projects. But, for those watching and who are going to want to follow along and see what happens, like, what can we look forward to, whether it's a virtual or maybe in-person final end? Like, what's going to happen at the end of this?
Yeah, I actually just wanted to pull up one picture because we do have an end of year showcase. We've only had 2 of them so far because we're just going into our 3rd year, but the end of year, it's not very long. It's also like an hour program, but, we spend the year talking about people's projects and, they start getting, developed. And it's just an opportunity at the end of the program in June to show it off, like just a snippet or just a piece of the rehearsal or the process of development, or whatever people might have to show, 20 minutes or so, just so so I wanted to show this photo because our
there's
first
Michelle.
Yeah, at the end of the year, it's actually Amanda, Michelle, and Maggie. I think they were reading Maggie's script in that, and that was in our lab at the Seagull in June and 2019. And then on the right, we have this cohort and Yael, who's not here tonight, and we did the whole thing online, which is probably what we're going to be doing this year too. So yeah, but I'll let everyone know. We'll all let everyone know when it's happening, and hopefully everyone will tune in to see where people are at in June. Again, no pressure. You don't have to have like a whole thing standing, but just to be able to share the process of the last few months.
Yeah, and for all those watching, like, I can't stress enough, if there's anything we learned, what 2020 has taught us is the importance of mentorship and the responsibility and the role that those of us who are privileged and who have arrived at a certain place to pass that on and to ensure that the incoming can come in strong and brave and fearless and prepared. And so I'm really, really proud of this program and Sivan, and for everyone who participates. So it gives 120%. So thank you so much. And we're gonna, if did anyone want to say anyone particularly, Hershel, Debbie, and Marissa, want to say anything as we sign off?
Just thank you. This was awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for the year ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been so nice, and it's so good seeing the old members as well. The alumni here is really lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a nice community and a nice culture you're building. Thank you so much.
And we have something really awesome with Vancouver and Toronto and Pennsylvania and New York. We're coming to Montreal, and I think we're equally excited to share that with you. So cheers, l'chaim. My wine is nearing its end. To the 2021 J.A.M cohort, and let's make this year whatever it will be, but we'll be there with you. That's I think what I could say is we'll be there for you. We'll be there with you. Thanks, Ange. Thanks, Ange, for all your support backstage, and Sivan for running this StreamYard too and producing this. So thank you. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.
Great to see everyone, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.